Hi there. Welcome to the Small Business Coffee Break, the series where we take a few minutes to work on your business, not just in it. Today we're talking with Zachariah Evangelista, partner at Sir & Associates PLLC, about what are the dangers of misclassifying an employee. Zach has over 10 years of experience helping small businesses build better foundations and protections to help them grow. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it.
Do that analysis, because the reason it's important and where the risks are overtime and taxes. So the people who care are the IRS, and you don't want the IRS caring about anything you're doing, and someone looking for a claim of overtime. Because if someone is classified as an independent contractor, they're not your employee. You only have to pay employees overtime. But if someone was misclassified and they were working 50, 60 hours and whatever the case may be, it's determined they are an employee, you're gonna have a huge back penalty, because you're not just paying the overtime that wasn't paid, you're paying treble damages, you're paying attorney's fees and all these other issues. Similarly with the IRS, you were responsible as the employer, for a certain amount of their taxes, right?
What? I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
You as the employer are responsible for half of the employment taxes.
Tax, yeah.
Not the income tax, but the Medicare, Social Security, the FICA, right? If you haven't paid that, and it hasn't been paid by them, there's going to be penalties, and it can become a huge, huge headache.
From an insurance perspective, there's only two types of people in the world: employers and employees. If they can't be an employer, then they're an employee.
Yeah.
And then I go into explaining that they have their own insurance. They can bring Bob to the job site. They don't have to clock in. You can't tell them who to have them do the work. Just a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's mostly from that perspective of like, hey, look, this is dangerous stuff, but so many people do it. And I think that's the problem, is that so many people don't get caught, but haven't seen the full consequence of it, at least at the middle stage of their business.
I'll give an example. I have a client, this was almost a decade ago now. So this was a situation. Overtime was actually, the person was an employee, worked overtime, but the client wasn't paying the halftime, so they paid him just straight time. Point being, they owed him about $400, cost the client $30,000. And that's nothing compared to some of the other horror stories I've heard. So if you are misclassifying your workforce as independent contractors, and a few of them get together and realize, you know what, we saw a coffee break with Dopazo, and we think we're actually employees.
Let's keep the conversation going. If you have any questions for Zach, ask him in the comments, or his contact information is in the description. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask Zach or any other professional in their field, my contact information is also in the description, and I'm always available via direct message. See you next week for another cup of coffee and more questions answered.